Welcome to this week's episode of Dylan's vlog and podcast. Thanks for joining. If you've listened for a while, you know that I'm just going to jump right into it with some of the things going on in my portfolio of businesses, some of the things that I'm learning and discovering. And I do this, share my own thoughts to explore what I'm thinking about, as well as hopefully opening the door to some new relationships with other entrepreneurs that are running their businesses or a portfolio of businesses and are looking to bounce some ideas or hear what other folks are up to. I'm one of those folks, and as an entrepreneur, there's often not a lot of opportunity to hear what other entrepreneurs are doing, kind of the behind the scenes look, and that's what I'm trying to do every week with these episodes. So thank you for tuning in. I'm going to dive right in and talk about something I touched on last week, which was another page out of my playbook called the Cash Flow Quadrant for business owners. And I developed this because in working with entrepreneurs and helping them turn around their business, as well now as managing my own, it serves as a great compass, if you will, to know where I should be focusing my efforts and what I need to be paying attention to. So I'm going to spin up my updates through just going through the quadrants. You can see what it looks like, and it might be instructful in helping you with your business. So the quadrant's pretty straightforward. If you are listening on the podcast, don't worry about it. I'll just paint a picture for you in your mind. On the vertical axis, you kind of got left to right, or west to east, if you will. And on the one side is cash in the bank. On the other side is no cash in the bank. And then there's an axis that is horizontal, and I got that the other way around. Let's try this again. So the horizontal line running west to east. On the west side or the left side, it says cash in the bank. On the right side, it says no cash. On the vertical axis, on the top, it says positive net profit, and on the bottom, it says negative net profits. If you can imagine 4 squares, in the bottom right-hand corner, it says struggling. So if you have no cash and negative net profit, you are a struggling business or potentially startup. To the left of that would be you have cash in the bank, but you have negative net profit, which means your business is probably adjusting or downsizing or trying to sort itself out right now because it is running itself at a loss and it's chewing up all of the capital it has in the bank, or all the cash it has in the bank. If we move up into the sort of the top right-hand quadrant, which means a business has no cash, but they have positive net profit, that would mean they are a business that is growing and they never have enough capital, but their profit and loss statement is showing that they do in fact have positive net profit. And then off to the top left-hand side is cash in the bank with positive net profit, which means you've probably stepped into the cycle of investing with your business. So the cash flow quadrant, there's a link in the show notes. You can click on it. You can go do a quick read. If you want to download the little intro ebook that I put together, feel free to do that as well. But in our businesses and the businesses that I'm working through, we have a couple of them. And so our construction business, I would say we have a little bit of cash in the bank. A little bit of cash, but I would move it towards maybe the no cash side, and positive net profit. We've been running positive net profit for 2 years now, which means we would fit into the growing quadrant. We're trying to figure out how to grow our business, how to do more with what we have now that COVID is over. As you heard in the last episode, or maybe a few episodes ago, I'm sort of wrestling through how do we grow our business properly, and in light of the fact that we no longer have to hang on for dear life, how do we actually take what we have and do something more with it? In our transportation business, same thing. We have cash in the bank and we've got positive net profit, which means we're now looking to make investments into either a new property or maybe into doing some other things with the business to try and really get a great return on our capital. And then our on-demand labor service would be in the negative net profit, and no cash would be in the struggling quadrant, because we are 2 months into the exercise and we're still figuring out how to diversify our revenue off of a couple of key customers. And so we're not quite there yet where we have to hire some folks and still have to spend quite a bit of money developing the software, which is where most of the cash goes. Even though we're building it ourselves, there's still a cost to doing that, and so it would be unfair to miscategorize where the business is at simply because we are using sweat equity to build the business. So in each of these quadrants, what I am discovering right now is that it's these quadrants give me sort of some focus. So for our construction business, um, it's in the growing quadrant, which means we're trying to figure out how do we create multiple sources of revenue right now. So most of our revenue comes from two main avenues. One is the public tendering system. So we bid on public tender projects and win them. And then we have off tender or off market projects where our personal relationships are the reason we get up to bat. And that's served our company really well for the last couple of years. But in order for us to grow, we're going to have to come up with another mechanism, or I think we have to. This is sort of what I'm thinking through right now. But we have to come up with another revenue stream or another sales line that gives us a different kind of customer that we can be working with. In fact, I was just this afternoon, a couple hours ago, I was sitting with a company. We do a lot of business back and forth with each other. They're considerably larger than we are, but because of the sort of the niche market that we fulfill, we end up working with them quite a bit. And they have the same sort of general challenge. They get a lot of their work just from personal relationships, whereas we get maybe 40% of what we do, 50% of what we do through the public tendering system, and they don't. So we sort of thought maybe there was an opportunity to send them some opportunities, send them some tendering opportunities that they could end up inviting us to if they end up winning them. And so in our construction business, when we're growing, that's kind of where my focus is right now. How do we diversify out where we get our business from? And it'd be the same thing in the transportation business. We've got, we're a local business, heavily localized business. And so we take advantage of Google My Business on Google Maps. And and we have a little bit of a Google AdWords campaign running alongside of it, and then we have somebody who generates cold leads for us by calling companies into the marketplace that could use our services, and then we get the occasional referral. But in that business, we're really focused now on trying to figure out how can we get more referral business. We have a new program that we're going to be launching to our customer base, and our hopes in doing that is that continues to drive some new business to our door. But we are maxed out, so we do have to invest in a new physical space. We have to figure out a way to either let go of a bunch of customers to make room for new ones that we can earn more revenue off of, or take the revenue base that we have and try to grow it by getting ourselves into physical premises that would help us out. So that's kind of where my head's at today, really kind of focused on this idea of multiple sources for revenue or for sales opportunities, and making sure that we kind of aren't held hostage to any one source of opportunity, that we've got lots of lines in the water. And given that COVID is sort of behind us and the world is back to normal, how do we now make sure to diversify out and not pin our hopes to one thing? And I think as an entrepreneur, that's hard to do. I think you sort of, or for me anyway, get comfortable in kind of the rhythm that we have. And our construction business has sort of 3x'd its revenue here in the past 60 days, and that's causing a bunch of challenges, mostly cash flow challenges because of how we operate. But that was not really anything we did other than over the last couple of years to do 1,000 things right. And then as the market began to turn, we were just there, able to take advantage of it. But I do think as entrepreneurs, it's important to have many different ways in which you generate opportunity and not just get married to one. Markets change all the time, and we want to go out there and build a profitable business. And I think to do that, you have to diversify out. And that's what I seem to be focused on, or what I'm thinking about this week, spending a lot of time thinking about. And then as I was sort of going through over the course of the past week, as I was thinking through how do we go after different sales channels or different marketing channels to diversify where we get our business from, I also realized it's been quite a while since I have listened to podcasts or read any books or watched any YouTube videos around sales and marketing. I think that's mostly because of time. I haven't made time for it. And there's that old saying that if it's important enough, you find a way to make time for the things that are important in life. And this, up and until this past week, wasn't important. And as I started peeling down a couple of podcasts, watching a couple of videos, and really trying to understand how do we not necessarily go after brand new customers, but how do we take advantage of what we have right in front of us. We have, in our one business, we've got a database of over 1,700 contacts that have heard about us or talked to us or worked with us in the past. At the other business, we've got almost 700 customers that we've worked with, and another, I'd probably venture a guess, maybe another 1,000 prospects. And so we don't need to flood our systems with new names or anything like that. We just need to come up with better ways to take advantage of what we've already invested in. And I know that intellectually, I know that if someone were to give me that piece of advice, I'd say, yeah, of course, just take advantage of what you have. Don't go reinvent the wheel. However, sitting down over the past week and putting pen to paper has given me very much a different kind of a different perspective, because then you've got to think through it and you got to think, wait a minute, what can we do here? What is our business capable of delivering to the marketplace in a different way, or what are we not taking advantage of? And really, it's this idea of wanting to diversify our revenue without having to reinvent the wheel. I guess that's the simplest way to say it. And it's funny because as I go through LinkedIn and I'm on Twitter quite a bit, you don't really see a lot of this kind of conversation. You really see a lot of, or I've never made the connection maybe. There's a lot of people talking about how to go get new customers and strategies that are working for them and graphs that show kind of hockey stick up to the right, but no one really gets into the weeds and says, here are some strategies of how we diversified our marketing plan, how we diversified our sales plan, how we leveraged up on our customer database, how we took some of the offers that we have and reconstructed them so that they are still the same offer, but they just present differently and have created new conversations with customers. So don't really see a lot of that stuff, or I don't see a lot of that stuff anyway, and I'm starting to kind of get my head into it and really figure it out, because I think that over the next little while, who knows how long a little while is, but I think in this dip that we're experiencing, this is really the time to lean hard and to come up with some of those foundational strategies that if we get them right today and we win with them today, that as the market turns or goes back to as the market turns and starts rising again in a year or two or 18 months from now, whatever it might be, that we're really well positioned. So we cut our teeth and did the hard work when things were hard, so that we were able to be profitable in the downturn. And when the next upturn comes, we can do nothing but hopefully cash checks. So that's kind of top of mind for me right now. It just occurred to me as I was going through all these videos and podcasts, though, that as an entrepreneur, we just can stop learning. You get stuck in your rut, or I do anyway. I get stuck in my rut, and I just do things a certain way. And over the course of the past week, listening to what just sort of some informational videos and podcasts and ebooks and stuff about how some of this foundational sales and marketing stuff, I was like, oh yeah, it's been like 20 years since I've thought about this stuff. So it's great to get learning again. It's been great to get my mind working. And now I'm hoping to connect with a few real life entrepreneurs who are in the same position that I'm in, where you've got businesses that are profitable. Your cash position sort of changes day to day because the companies are in growth mode. But what are you doing to try and diversify out where your company is seeing opportunities from? How do you make sure you're not pinned to one or two strategies? So I don't know, drop me a line, send me a DM, let me know what your business is doing, because part of the reason I do this is to share my own thoughts, but hopefully connect with other people as well. And so anyway, hopefully you find that interesting. I am gonna jump into going through a couple tweets here that I find exciting and interesting. And it's been a slow week on Twitter for me, as a matter of fact, just because I've been so busy. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just pop up a couple tweets on the screen. And let's just take a look here. Give me just a second. Sounds like I have a cold. I don't actually think I do have a cold, but it kind of feels like maybe there's one in the background there. So sorry for the lame or the crappy audio quality. All right, the one tweet was from a couple of days ago, and there's this Marshmallow experiment, if you will, that talks about if you put a marshmallow in front of a kid and tell them that if they don't eat it, they can get more marshmallows. It's like this whole delayed gratification thing. So a guy named Mike Beckham had just posted something that said the marshmallow experiment shows just how hard it is for humans to delay gratification. Thinking long term means saying no to things we want today so that we can have more of them in the future. It turns out it doesn't get easier with age. And I had just replied back to his tweet and had said, in my experience, personal and otherwise, this is particularly true when business owners are considering borrowing. Many think debt will fix their problems, but oftentimes it doesn't change anything. Saying no and fixing the business usually changes everything. And if you know anything about my story, you know that during the financial crisis, it was pretty brutal. I was running a mortgage brokerage, and literally overnight, mortgage commitments weren't getting funded, and I had a huge burn rate on a big retail space with a pretty big staff, and we'd done fairly well in the market, rose to be one of the largest independent brokerages in the country, and overnight just got wiped out. And to add insult to injury, I had also decided that it not only had I been a good lender, because that was my background, I decided to become a developer and had some real estate projects not work out. So it's been a long road back to stable ground. But that the whole delay gratification idea, I think if you've never had to work through repaying debt or fixing a business, which I've spent the last decade or more doing, it can kind of be a strange concept because you sort of think, well, no, I'll just borrow the money today and tomorrow it'll all work out and everything will be good. But it turns out that if you're going to borrow money, you're basically taking tomorrow's result into today. And the idea would be that if you're doing that, it's because you think that if you had tomorrow's result today, that you could leverage it up and get a better result. So sort of people mistakenly use debt like equity, meaning debt should be used if it has a definitive purpose. For example, a customer owes me $100 in 30 days from now, but today I have to pay for the materials and I have to pay people in order to do the job to charge the $100 so that I can get it in 30 days. But somehow you have to find $100 between now and the day that it's due. So let's just say that your costs on the project are $80, in 30 days you're going to get $100 because you've got $20 of profit. Borrowing $80 when you know you've got $100 coming, that's how debt is supposed to work. Entrepreneurs, myself included, have oftentimes just blindly borrowed money without really knowing what it's going to be repaid through. And if you're going to borrow money, but you don't have a definitive repayment plan that you can kind of put your hand on your heart and say, this is just going to happen. It's not really a function of if, it's just when. Then you should be raising equity. So you should be getting investors or selling a piece of your business because that means you're taking an unquantified risk that doesn't require giving away your personal net worth for, or at least that's my position anyway. Or the better strategy, quite frankly, is just to figure out how to get by without borrowing money until it becomes obvious that your only solution is to borrow money because your business only produces so much cash. And so to make up the difference between the money that you think that is coming versus the money you have to spend today, that's kind of how debt works. But delayed gratification, there's a lot to be said about that. I know as an A-type entrepreneur, I go through cycles where I can be very astute and I can put pen to paper and run spreadsheets and really take my time to understand whether I should be doing something. And other times I kind of get caught on the crest of a wave because maybe I've had a good run and I think, I think we can probably just borrow the money. It's just going to get us to where we're going faster. And every time I've done that, it just hasn't worked out. It's been incredibly painful. And so if your business, I guess the point is, and certainly using that cash flow quadrant really helps as well, because it gives you two very easy benchmarks to use. How much cash do you have in the bank? What's your net profit? And off of that, you should be able to drill down into your business and go, should we be borrowing? And if we should be borrowing, why exactly are we borrowing? Do we need all the people that we have on our team? Do we need to be incurring all the expenses that we're incurring? Or is there a way to adjust what we're doing to be very efficient with our money? And when we borrow it, it's really just a stepping stone to a destination or to a goal. And stepping stone meaning we know that the business is going to produce the result needed to repay it, because debt has to be repaid. So as I saw that fella's tweet, it just spurred the thinking that saying no and fixing your business is usually a better solution than just trying to leverage up an asset and ultimately borrow more money. And let's see here. I flick back on Twitter and see if I can find another tweet that was somewhat meaningful. Give me just a second here. Yeah, interesting. Just as I go through this, there's a lot of talk about bankruptcies and receiverships and companies not making it. And so there's a little tweet there's actually a blog post that I had made about how do you know if you're going to go bankrupt. So put that in the thread for you as well, or jump on Twitter. You can just find it in my feed. Yeah, here's a good one. So a fellow named Eric Paley had said, startups don't just, quote, run out of money. They wait too long to address problems while they have the money. Failure doesn't usually happen to startups. It happens when founders rationalize problems until it's too late. Startups need to proactively tackle their biggest problems. I had responded with my own thoughts that said, most businesses fail for this reason, definitely not unique to startups. So the whole idea of waiting too long to address the problems that you have, certainly in an economic time like the one that we're in right now, it will never be harder than it is right now to get money. And so if you need it, then you're going to need to give yourself a lot of runway to try and get it. And where all of this sort of this conversation comes from is in the stock, because of the stock market, because of in my world anyway, I just personally enjoy following startups and the venture capital community. And what's happened is companies that have been raising money have not really had a very difficult time doing that in the last couple of years, because there has been so much money moving through the system, and then because of COVID, there was even more money pumped into the system. If you followed the kind of the Robin Hood and Game Stop stories along. But now all of that is gone, and startups are having a very difficult time raising money, but they had anticipated that it was going to just keep being easy. And so, again, in my experience, and this happened during the financial crisis, was I sort of kept thinking tomorrow's going to be better, tomorrow's going to be better, tomorrow's going to be better. And the truth is tomorrow just never came. And when the market did finally return, it looked nothing at all like what it had looked like before the market had gone sideways. And so, most entrepreneurs, I find, do know how their business is doing. Sometimes we bury our head in the sand and we just try to ignore certain things. But if you want to build a lasting business, if you want to build a valuable and profitable business, part of doing that requires that you just make hard decisions and you take your head out of the sand, you look around the marketplace and you go, okay, you know what? It sucks. So here's what we're going to do. You take the bullet, you take the punch in the face, you get hit by the train, whatever analogy you want to use, and you get to work building a profitable business. Again, using that cash flow quadrant that we talked about earlier in this episode, or I showed here on the screen earlier, that can really be helpful. I mean, it can be helpful to say, look, the reality is we have no cash in the bank. The reality is we're running negative net profit. We can't do that forever. Something is going to break, and so if that's the state of affairs, let's just get to work fixing it right now and making all the decisions that we have to make. So if you're an entrepreneur, I would strongly encourage you to not wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow, if it comes, it's not going to look like what you think. Chances are it's not going to look like what you think. And you should get to work figuring out, do you have a real business that requires some tweaking or some adjusting? And if so, what do you got to do to get down that path? So a business moves from struggling to adjusting to growing to investing. And I get up every single day to move my businesses through those quadrants. And I would encourage you to consider the same thing, or at least to use it as a compass to try and find your way through. But the worst thing you can do, I think the worst thing you can do, is to just pretend that the world isn't changing right before our very eyes and hope that tomorrow is going to be like it was last year or the year before or during the quote-unquote good times. Take your glory days for what they were worth and get to work building something valuable. So that's about all I have to share this week. Again, my mind is focused on learning more about how I can diversify out where we generate our opportunities from in each of the businesses that are in our portfolio, and um, trying to trying to expand my learning and my experience. I mean, my job as a leader is to set the course for where we're going, make sure we've got the right people and the right resources in place to get there. But I'm only as good as the work that I'm doing to try and understand new things. And so that's what I'm focused on. I would encourage you to do the same thing. And again, this idea that the world is happening in real time around us, and as entrepreneurs, if we're meant to steward our businesses properly, if we want to build something valuable and profitable, that we should probably get to work making difficult decisions if in fact that's what we have to be doing. So anyway, hope you find that helpful. I have a couple of updates that I'm looking forward to sharing next week about one of the businesses that I'm involved with that hopefully is hopefully is coming to some sort of an end. I know I've been sharing that for a couple of weeks, but that's just how these things go. And anyway, would love to hear from you. Again, I post this podcast and this vlog to try and connect with other just entrepreneurs running businesses. Nothing special, not information sellers, not folks that aren't responsible for signing payroll checks, but really like real in the dirt entrepreneurs. I would love to connect with you. Send me a message, like, share this episode, give it a rating if you can, because when you do that, it puts it in front of more people, and I would be very grateful. So thank you for that. And I look forward to catching you on the next episode. Have a good week.